They laughed in my living room, while I stared at the same four walls. My name is Eleanor Whitmore. I'm 72 years old. For 37 years, I worked as a public school librarian in Columbus, Ohio. Quiet work, patient work. The kind where children remembered your smile more than your name. I raised my children in the same way. Quietly, patiently, completely. The house on Maplewood Lane was never fancy. White siding. A small porch. A backyard where grass refused to grow evenly. But it was home. I cooked there. I cried there. I watched scraped knees heal and graduation caps fly. And now it wasn't mine. At least not in the way that mattered. The old age home smelled like disinfectant and boiled vegetables. They called it Silver Meadows Assisted Living. Silver Meadows, a name meant to sound peaceful. But peace doesn't come from painted walls and scheduled meals. It comes from being remembered. I was placed there after my mild stroke, not because I couldn't walk, not because I couldn't think, but because my children said it's safer this way, Mom. My eldest son, Michael, signed the papers. My daughter, Karen, nodded in agreement. The youngest, Jason, didn't come that day. He sent a text. Temporary, they promised. Just until you recover. Weeks turned into months, months into silence. Meanwhile, at Silver Meadows, the nurses noticed a change. I walked straighter, smiled more. A woman with a plan always does. I began visiting the Children's Hope Foundation on volunteer days. I read to kids with bruises no one explained. I recognized the fear, the loneliness, the waiting. One little girl asked me, "Do you live here?" I smiled gently. "No," I said, "but I know what it feels like to be forgotten." The house sale finalized on a rainy Thursday. I watched from the car as strangers walked through rooms filled with my memories. It hurt, but not like before. The money went into my account. Every cent, untouched. Waiting, Michael called that night. "Mom, the realtor says the house is listed." "Yes," I replied calmly. Silence. "What do you mean listed?" "I sold it." His voice cracked. You what?" "I donated the proceeds," I continued, "to children who actually need a home." The line went dead. I leaned back in my chair. For the first time since arriving at Silver Meadows, I felt free. They thought I wouldn't dare. They forgot who taught them courage. The phone didn't ring for 3 days after Michael hung up. 3 full days of silence. Not even a text. At Silver Meadow, the routine stayed the same: breakfast. At 8, physical therapy. At 10, bingo. At 4, but something inside me had shifted. I wasn't waiting anymore. On the 4th day, Karen showed up. Unannounced. Unprepared. She stood at the entrance. Like a stranger, arms crossed, anger, fighting confusion on her face. "You sold the house?" she asked, not bothering with hello. "Yes." "And you didn't think to tell us first?" I studied her carefully. "I thought it was already yours," I replied. "That's how you treated it." Her face flushed. "That house was our childhood. And I was your mother," I said gently. "We both lost something." She sat down hard in the plastic chair across from me. "You embarrassed us," she snapped. "People are talking." I smiled faintly. People have been quiet about me for years. Karen tried a different tone. "We were going to move you back once things settled." When I asked, she looked away. That was answer enough. Later that evening, Michael called again. This time his voice was colder. "You gave away our inheritance." I closed my eyes. "No," I corrected him. "I gave away my house." Jason finally called that night too. The youngest, the one who avoided conflict. "Mom, we didn't mean for it to be like this." "But it was," I said. They came together the next weekend. All 3, sitting across from me like I was the problem to be solved. "You could have asked us," Michael said. "I asked for years," I replied softly. "You were busy." They accused. I listened. They raised voices. I stayed calm. Then Karen asked the question that revealed everything. "So what happens to you now?" I smiled. "I stay," I said. "Where people actually check if I'm alive." That night after they left, Nurse Linda squeezed my hand. "You did the right thing," she whispered. The news spread quietly, not in newspapers, in conversations, in charity offices, in lives changed. Children's Hope Foundation used the donation to open a new wing. They named it the Whitmore House, a place for children with nowhere else to go. A reporter reached out. I declined. This wasn't about recognition. It was about redirection. Weeks passed. My children stopped calling. Then Michael showed up again. Different this time. Smaller. "I lost my job," he admitted. I was hoping. He didn't finish. "He didn't need to." I folded my hands. "I already helped," I said. He stared. "You chose strangers over us." I shook my head slowly. "I chose those who needed me when you didn't." He left without another word. That night I slept peacefully. No regrets. At the foundation, the little girl from before ran to me. "They said this place exists because of you." I knelt carefully. It exists because you deserve better, I told her. For the first time, someone hugged me without obligation. I began to understand something. Family isn't defined by who shows up for parties. It's defined by who shows up for pain. One evening, as the sun set over Silver Meadows, I received a letter, handwritten, from Karen, apologizing. Not excusing, just apologizing. I placed it in my drawer, unanswered. Not out of anger, out of honesty. Some bridges can't be rebuilt. Only remembered. I walked the garden path that evening. Slow, steady, alive. Because sometimes payback isn't revenge. It's reclaiming your worth. They came back when everything was gone. They finally saw me when I stopped waiting. The letter from Karen stayed in my drawer for weeks. Not because I didn't read it. Because I did. Again and again. She wrote about guilt. About shame. About how seeing the Whitmore house on the news made her realize what she had done. What they all had done. I thought you'd always be there, she wrote. I never thought you could choose yourself. That sentence stayed with me. Because it was true. They never imagined I would stop sacrificing. One afternoon, Silver Meadows called my room phone. You have visitors, Mrs. Whitmore. Visitors. Plural. They were all there. Michael, Karen, Jason, standing together. Not angry. Not loud. Just unsure. Michael spoke first. We're not here to ask for money. I nodded. Good. Jason's eyes were red. We came to ask if you'd forgive us. Silence filled the room. Not uncomfortable. Necessary. I forgave you the day I stopped expecting you to change, I said gently. Karen started crying. We didn't think. That's the problem, I replied softly. You didn't. Michael swallowed hard. We lost the house. The memories. You. I looked at him steadily. No, I said. You lost control. I gained peace. They sat with me for hours. Not arguing. Listening. For the first time in years, I told them about the children. About the Bruces. About the little girl who finally slept through the night. Karen whispered you were alone and we were partying. Yes, I said. And that truth had to be faced. Before leaving, Jason asked quietly, is there anything we can do? I smiled. Be better to someone who can't walk away. Months passed. My health stabilized. My heart felt lighter. The Whitmore house opened officially. Children laughed in hallways once filled with fear. Walls painted bright. Beds warm. They invited me to the opening ceremony. I didn't want a speech. But they insisted. I stood slowly at the podium. Hands steady. Voice calm. This place exists, I said. Because no one should feel disposable. The room was silent. I lost a house, I continued. But I found purpose. Applause followed. Not loud. Respectful. That night back at Silver Meadows, I received one last call. My call. I understand now, he said. Too late, but I understand. I closed my eyes. Understanding late is still understanding, I replied. I hung up and slept peacefully. Sometimes payback isn't watching others fall. It's rising so quietly they don't notice until it's done. Final message, YouTube style. Some parents give everything and are remembered only when it's convenient. If this story touched your heart, if you believe respect should never come late, like this video, subscribe for more emotional real-life stories. Share, because someone out there feels forgotten. Remember, sometimes the bravest thing a mother can do is choose herself